Thank you for tuning in to another episode of One More Story. We are back and hoping to reach even more listeners in Season 2, so please, if you are enjoying the show, be sure to leave us a review and share with your friends. So sit back, relax, and enjoy tonight's episode. My guest tonight is KATE MICUCCI. She is an actress, comedian, artist, and musician known for her roles in The Big Bang Theory, DuckTales, Weeds, Scooby-Doo, countless other shows, and her most recent role as the voice of Mia in Angry Birds Mystery Island, which is currently streaming on Amazon Prime. KATE, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to see you, especially after all these years.
I mean, it has been, is it 20 years or it's close? Must
close
be.
to 20 years, yes, which is crazy to think because I don't feel like I'm 20.
Well, I'm so glad, one, you remembered me, and two, that you were willing to come on. But we've had mutual friends on this show, so hopefully that made it a little easier.
Yes, and then our mutual friend Eric, he was the one that connected us. Thank you, Eric. And I'm trying to remember what the commercial that we both acted in. It was El Pollo Loco. Yes. What happened in it? Do you know?
Well, it's funny because my kids got a kick out of it, and so they still play. Like they'll play it, which is very funny. So I have actually seen it. It's on YouTube.
Oh, it is. Oh, I gotta look it up. Is that where I'm like a bird lady or something? I'm like covered in feathers or something?
No, it's just like we're like these really offbeat. It's the Jinx Buy Me a Coke.
That one. Oh my God. That is so crazy. That's right. Now I remember the Jinx Buy Me a Coke. Wow.
We played very offbeat characters. I had most of my own wardrobe. I had like a salmon shirt and a very ugly tie that I actually owned at the time.
Like I said, somewhere I have a photo of us together in front of our trailer. I will find it. I will send it to you. This doesn't help for this actual moment, but yeah, I should have prepared better. That has to be like 2006, maybe 2007, something like that.
Yeah, it was one of my first SAG jobs, I think.
Probably me too. It's all a blur. Sometimes it bums me out that I can't remember much.
Well, it happens. I mean, we both have kids now. How many kids? Do you just have one?
I have one kid named Mikey, and he's 4, and he's really, really fun. I'm having a great time. It was hard. That first year was hard.
Yeah.
But now it's awesome. How old are your kids?
So they're 10 and 12. So, it's great. We don't have to travel with car seats.
That's nice.
Yeah. And so like you go on an airplane, they're just watching movies or TV shows, very chill. They can go to the bathroom on their own. They can bathe themselves. Like there's a lot of really wonderful things at this age. But then you start to get into, my son is in middle school going into 7th grade. So you start having
a tough time.
Yeah. You start having conversations about social media. And so I think 8 to 10, 8 to 11 is a really nice sweet spot.
That sounds, because they're very independent and the worries are probably maybe a little less. 7th grade for me was pretty tough. I think that's some people have a great time in 7th grade, and anyone listening, if you're going into 7th grade, it might be awesome. But I had a hard time adjusting to a new school, being with new kids.
Where had you moved from? Yeah, so you grew up in New Jersey, correct?
In New Jersey and Pennsylvania. At this point, we were in a small town in Pennsylvania called Nazareth, and I loved my elementary school.
Bethlehem.
Wait, sorry. What? That's crazy.
Wait, so
How long did you live there?
Like a year.
Okay. So I was probably in New Jersey at that time. We probably didn't cross paths, but that's crazy. I know Bethlehem quite well.
Yeah. So wait, there's a Nazareth and a Bethlehem. I didn't know that. They really hit the Old Testament hard, or the Bible.
Sure did.
They really hit
Egypt,
the Bible hard.
There's a lot of other ones that I don't know. I know there's more than that, but yeah. I mean, it's right next to 15 minutes. I grew up about 15 minutes away from Bethlehem. So yes, it's the Christmas city. If you ever get to go back, it's an actual great town. And you can get a really cool old house for much less than you can get for a house here in Los Angeles. There's really great architecture. The fall is beautiful. I'm really selling you on Bethlehem now. Bethlehem is like, there's some culture. It's cool. I like it.
I haven't been back, but my niece is going into her junior year at Lehigh.
Oh, yeah. It's right there.
Yeah.
Right across from Steel Stacks, which is, it's actually become a really cool venue. They have a lot of great comedians, musicians that come through. And it's, it's the old Bethlehem Steel. And now it's a artist venue. It's pretty awesome.
You should work for the Board of Tourism for Bethlehem. You're
you can hire me $5 an hour. I'll do commercials for Bethlehem and Nazareth. Nazareth is nice. I love going back, especially in the summer. It's a really great like summer town. Like there's a big pool. It's like at the park. It's very fun.
So tell me a little bit about, so you grew up mostly in New Jersey, right?
New Jersey, yep, and Pennsylvania. Oh yes, that's right. We were talking about middle school. I loved my elementary school so much, and I just, if I could have done all my schooling in elementary school, just stayed there and done it again, I would have. I loved it. So it was very hard to leave and start a new school with bigger school, but kids, because it was middle school. But but then once I found my way and I joined the marching band, and it got to be fun.
You found your tribe. Have you always been into visual arts, performing arts? I mean, you seem to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I kind of do, just a little bit of all of it. But I always did. Like I always was doing music. I competed with piano since I started competing at 8 years old, maybe, until I graduated from high school. And I was in the marching band. I played trombone, and then I was always drawing. I was always painting, and I was in the school plays, and I was always putting on shows. So yeah, I think I'm doing the same exact thing that I was doing as a kid, in a way, and that's kind of fun. I'm very lucky. I feel very lucky that I get to.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is to make a living doing what you love. What was your path like out here? Like, when did you move out here? How did you find things in LA? Like, what were those early days like for you, aside from the El Pollo Loco fame?
Well, I came out here, the fame from the El Pollo Loco commercial. I came out here to finish college. I'd been at an art school in Pennsylvania. I did 2 years there. It was only a 2-year art school. So then I finished school at Loyola Marymount University, and then stayed out here. Knew really nothing about Hollywood, or I didn't really know anyone in the business or anything like that. But I was babysitting for a family whose neighbor was a casting director for commercials. And they said, you should talk to her. So she was very nice, and she did. And she kind of helped me find my early way and helped me meet an agent. And that agent didn't want to take me because I had no resume, nothing. I had some photos that my friend took. And I was like, please, just let me audition for you. And he handed me a Burger King commercial. And then I read it, and he said, oh, okay, I'll give you a try. And then I think I got my second commercial, and then like my second audition, I got something. So it was right when commercials had gone from like really pretty people to like odd people. And then I was like, hi, I'm here. So it worked out quite well in the beginning. But yeah, so then I don't know, I did commercials for a while, and then started doing, bits on TV. And, it's been a very steady kind of, well, steady is maybe not even the right word, but, I've been able to put together some kind of living, by doing these things. And it's, it's always fun and interesting, and it's never boring.
No, it's highly unpredictable, and which can be exciting, and it can also be quite nerve-wracking at times.
Very, very true. How about, did you come out here after college, or?
I spent 3 years in Indianapolis after college doing web design and local theater. And I just did not want to live in the Midwest. I went to college in the Midwest. I could not handle the winters anymore. And I had some family out here, and, I was acting the whole time, and I was just like, you know what? And I had saved up enough money. I was like, I'm just going to pull the trigger and pack up my car and just go out here and see what happens. And, lived in a a little apartment in Santa Monica, and like above the smog check, right on Michigan and Lincoln. You know, it's like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, like right by the 10, basically. So there was always
Yes.
like soot on our windowsills. Like it was just like we were just breathing in all sorts of nasty stuff. But it was, to us, it was close to. I lived with two roommates, buddy from college, and we were close to the beach. I was doing auditions. Actually, the first thing I did was a student film at LMU with Matt Donnelly, who I think you might remember. He was a film student there. I don't know if you remember
I'd
him.
have to look. I'd have to look it up. I wonder if we might have been there at the same time. I did know some of the film people, but yeah, I knew most of the art kids and the theater kids. But you know, everybody kind of crossed paths. It's not the biggest school, so yeah, maybe I do know Matt. I'll have to look.
Yeah, you might. But you know, and then continue. You know, the commercials, as you know, were amazing in the early 2000s,
Oh
because
my
once you started
gosh.
yeah,
It was,
it was
and
incredible.
also, I don't know if you remember this, but when we were doing it, people who had been doing it for a while, like, oh, you should have seen the money in the 90s. You could buy a house. And now it's like, you should have seen what it was like in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, it is. You know, I think it's a combination of celebrities. There was a turning point, you know, somewhere, you know, 12, 15 years ago, where the floodgates opened. Celebrities started doing commercials in the States. Like previously, like Brad Pitt, George Clooney, they would do, like David Fincher would direct these commercials that would air in Europe or in Asia, never in the United States. Like celebrities would never ever do those. And then they started doing them, and then commercials started to lean heavily on non-union talent. And
Okay.
it basically killed the working act. Like it was, and it's sort of been that way. I mean, I don't do much commercial stuff anymore, but yeah, it's just not. And I feel bad for people who come out now, because, and especially after the two strikes and things haven't really picked back up again. It's a really, as you know, it's a difficult time.
It is. There's a huge shift. I think we all can feel it. I don't know where we're going to land. I can only hope that things will, there's no way that it can stay. More things are going to be made, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. I think we just kind of have to hang tight and stay creative and just keep making things, even if it's just for ourselves,
Yeah.
But I was going to say, it was smart of you to live on the West Side, because at least back then, I was always driving to the West Side for those auditions. All commercial auditions, for the most part, were near the beach. Yeah.
Because the commercial directors all have a ton of money, and they live
and live on the
on
beach.
They live. And so they're like, yeah, I don't want to leave Santa Monica. And who could blame them? I mean,
that makes sense.
But back to your point about like continuing to make stuff. So I want to talk about Garfunkel and Oates.
Yeah.
And then also you have a new solo album, which I'd love for you to talk about. So tell me about that.
Well, actually, Garfunkel and Oates started during the strike of 2008, because Ricky Lindholm, my writing partner with Garfunkel and Oates, she was saying, I want to make something, so she made a short movie, and we were friends, and she said, hey, maybe we could make this a musical, because she knew that I wrote music and Ricky wrote music. So together we wrote a couple of songs for this short that Ricky was directing and starring in. And then she also put me in. Anyway, we wrote these songs, and it just sort of happened that YouTube was beginning, and we Ricky put the songs on YouTube. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, people are going to see these videos. Like, I just thought we were like filming them for her mom to see. And anyway, it was early days of YouTube, and people found them, and it sort of was, it kind of snowballed from there. And it became a thing where we toured for years and years. And we had a TV show for a season. And, it took us many places around, like all around the country and even parts of the world. And it's really cool to think that, it just started out of not having work during a strike. And we were still really early in our careers at that point. It was early. Well, no, 2008. I think I'd been acting for like 3 years at that point. But yeah, so that, that is a great, like, for me, like it's a lesson of like, yeah, you can make your own things and then get them out there. And I feel like I've always been this way. Like, even when I was young, I would like make a little thing, and then I just have to share it with everyone. Like, I'd want to like take it to the neighbors, or in college, if I were like to write a song, I would like knock on the neighbor's door and be like, hey, can I play you this? Like, I just always wanted to get out the thing that I've just made, Right. And nowadays it's, obviously we have our phones and you can easily do it. And I'm still I still love it. Like I still love to share what I make. And that's a very kind of simple concept, but I get so excited about it. And I think that's like a, I feel like, and some people like to make things and not share them, and that's fine too. But I definitely like to, I love to perform a song and just see how, if I can, get a reaction or make people, happy or whatever it is. I'm always making things, always. And I think that it's just a good thing to do, and I will say I've had times where if I had hard times or feeling down, like sometimes then I don't feel like making something, but it's always making something that gets me out of the feeling down, if that makes sense.
Totally. I mean, I'm the same way. It's one of the reasons I started this podcast last year, is because the strikes were in full swing and we're just coming out of COVID and things weren't really happening. And I was like, I need to get something out there. I think because I follow you on Instagram. I want to talk about your art, your visual art as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's so cool. But this need to connect with other people through your work. And, for me, it was a need to tell stories and a need to produce something, to have something come out every week or every 2 weeks. I may have to scale it back a little bit as I'm getting busier, but there's a real sense of accomplishment, especially when you can do it all on your own. You're not waiting for a gatekeeper. You're not waiting for approval. Now with technology, if you have something to say or you want to create something, you can get it out there. And that's a pretty incredible thing.
I wrote a song last week it's actually a song about exactly what we're talking about making things and how, it's, don't keep it inside. Like, just like if you have any kind of feeling like you want to make something, do it. 'Cause that feeling does go away eventually, like sometimes I'll be like, oh, I have a melody in my head. I'll deal with it later. And then I'm like, wait, what was it? Like when the inspiration is with you, you got to like honor it and at least like record it in your phone or, maybe doodle it, an idea or whatever it is. Like, I think, because I feel like there are gifts that do go away, but I also have this theory, and I think a lot of musicians think this, but if the melody does come back to you later, it's like, okay, that's a good one. It came back, like a boomerang. But yeah, I think I wrote. So I was saying last week I wrote a song about this, about just make what's in your head, really.
Right. What do you think that is that drives you to do that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like I don't I've always kind of just done that, and I think partly I do get a high from it. Like, so maybe there is that something to like, I want to do that again. Like, but I just think I kind of just have to, I think. I don't know.
Well, then how do you deal with, say it's not well received? How do you deal with any level of rejection, right? You've got some idea in your head. You've got this piece of art, this piece of music, whatever, and you're so excited. You want to get it out there. Are there times when it just doesn't go over? And like, how do you deal with that?
I think being an actor for 20 years, there's nothing better to help you just know how to deal with rejection or negativity in the way that you get tough. And not to say I haven't had moments where I cried because this part that I got really close to, I didn't get, or whatever, like of course you have these things you invest in but being an actor and being told, nope, next, no, like over and over, it just, you kind of are like, whatever, like next for me, but next for the next thing I make too. Like, you just kind of keep making or keep trying or keep, what it is. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like I said I have a terrible memory, but I really do. When it comes to auditions, I'll be like, oh, I remember there was an actress who was a comedian and she got this really big part in this action movie. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool for her. Wow. That's so that's a big deal. And then I was like, oh wait, I auditioned for that. I completely forgot. So I'm glad I forget.
Wow. So your psyche was just built for this then.
I guess so. I don't know.
I mean, it had no, but you do, and I think my good friend Matt, who I mentioned from LMU, he's a writer as well. He told me about writing. He said, you do have to have a certain level of being delusional
Mm-hmm.
to an extent, and that's like a healthy dose of delusion, right? Where you're
Yes.
so optimistic. And I mean, obviously you have talent, you've continued to work, you're not delusional, like you're getting your deserved success. But in those moments where you are getting rejected or you don't get that part, because no matter how successful you are, you're getting rejected along the way. I mean, the success rate for what we do is minuscule. And so I
Mm-hmm.
do think you have to just, there's something inside you that just keeps you going in the face of constant rejection. And I think that is sort of the secret to staying power in the arts and in this business, because you I mean, it's the thick skin, but it's also, I think there's just this optimism that, I'm going to get the next one.
Yeah, yeah. You have to have that, because otherwise, then that's where I think it would get hard. And I guess for some reason, 20 years later, I still have that feeling of, oh, maybe the next one. I also, as far as creativity goes, I feel like, like I have like almost like seasons of like, okay, I'm super making stuff right now. I'm in it. I'm in the pocket of like ideas are hitting me and songs or whatever it is. And then I do have times where it's like just feels a little bit less, or like it's
Mm-hmm.
just not coming to me in a way that feels natural. Or but I always have to trust I had a college professor who always said, just trust that and know, just like if the leaves fall off the tree, the leaves will come back. And like, yes, just
Mm-hmm.
trust it. Don't freak out if you're not feeling in it or feeling creative in that time, or even in a week or two. It's like it will come back. And so I always try to remember that. And I just wanted to share that.
No, and I think that's great, because I also think your creativity should not be results driven, right? Like
No.
you should create because that's what you feel the need to do, and eventually it will come together.
Yeah. And there's different things, obviously sometimes you get hired to do a thing and then you have to make the thing, whatever you got hired for.
Right.
And then so that's a whole other ball game in a way. But, and so sometimes you do have to force it, or you'll be like just hit your head against the wall for days and days until you think of something that feels right for the thing. But so that's like it's less natural, but it's still, hopefully you somehow find something that feels true to your heart and feels organic to apply to the project. But I do love
Right.
assignments. That's the thing. I thrive on assignments. So I think that's like my pleasing type of, like, I loved homework, and I just, I don't know if it was a goody two shoes situation, but I feel like, do people say that, goody two shoes? What does that even
I,
mean? I just said it.
I don't even know
Yeah.
what that means anymore. But yeah, you were like a gold star student.
Yeah, I was,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know what that says about me, but yeah, I only say that sometimes you have to make something because you've been hired to make it.
Of
you know,
course.
that's a
Of
different thing.
course. So tell me about the new album that came out, and I'll put a link in the notes, because I host this on Spotify, which is really handy, and so I
Great.
can link all of this stuff. Tell me about your new album that came out in this past fall, My Hat.
Yeah, my hat.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's on Spotify, and it's a album of songs that are for kids, but really I feel like they're for everyone. Half the songs were written years and years and years ago, and others were newer. Since I've had my son, I wrote a few for him, and I'm really proud of it. We recorded it. My husband is a music producer, and he produced it. We recorded it all on tape. A lot of it was very kind of live, with like a bunch of people playing at the same time and me singing. It felt very live and fun. And yeah, we recorded the album. It was a while. It took me a while to figure out, whether I was going to put it out myself or put it out on a label. And then eventually I just put it out myself. And then that very day that the album came out, I found out I had lung cancer. So I didn't get to promote the album like I had wanted back then. But now, I feel like, there's no time limit to these things. So yeah, I have an album. It's not quite new, but it's still I'm proud of it.
Well, and I was trying to get you on the
Back
show
then,
right
yes.
back then, and then you're like, I have to have surgery on my lung. And then I see on the news, it was like Good Morning America, like a clip from Good Morning America somebody had
Yeah.
posted. So are you okay? And what's going on?
I'm knocking on wood. Yes, I am okay. I was very, very lucky to catch it early. I have to go for a scan in a few months to make sure it's all good. But as of now, I'm totally back to doing all the things I was doing before. But yeah, I was lucky to catch it early, and it's a tricky thing because for my age, and I'm a non-smoker, I would never have been tested for this. So it's hard to tell people like go get checked because I mean, I would say go get checked because a lot of younger people are getting this type of lung cancer, but it's not something that would be on anyone's, like for my age, it wouldn't be on any doctor's radar to check for it. So I got lucky. They were scanning my heart for another thing, and that's how the technician saw it. And that is a very, very lucky thing. So, yeah, I guess
I'm so glad.
I don't say, yeah, just stay on top of your health as best you can. Everyone.
Yeah, no, it's
Easier said than done, I know. But I in my story here, I got very, very, very lucky. So
well, I'm so glad. I'm glad that you're doing better because
thank you.
It's scary. We don't feel old, and these aren't things that you think of, as you said, and
yeah,
but it happens, and so
it does. It does.
I'm glad to yes. So I'm glad you're in the clear, and
Thanks.
and you've continued to stay busy. And the last thing I want to ask you about before we get into the stories is I'm fascinated by, would you call it street art, urban art? What do you call your?
I don't know what I call it because it's not like I mean, in New York, I went ahead and I was like tagging this building, and then it turned out this was the thing that went viral. It was like I tagged it last summer, and then I went back in November when I was dealing with all my health stuff, but I was also having a juxtaposed with like freaking out. I was also having a great time drawing on this restaurant. But I drew on a restaurant in New York, and that was really fun. But yeah, there's an alley where I live, and people just drop off garbage and just it sits there forever. And so I've been drawing on that. So yeah, I draw on garbage, and I don't know what you would call it, but it's fun. I've been doing more canvases, and my main thing eventually, once I have enough, I'm gonna do some kind of charity, some kind of cancer charity art sale, but I haven't quite figured it out yet.
Very cool.
Yeah, they're kind of like drawings on. I don't know what you'd call it.
Well, it's got a real, it's got like a Keith Haring vibe to it.
Yeah. Oh, I love him. He's one of my biggest inspirations. But yeah, it's like someone said it was like manic pixie Keith Haring or something. I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I would never, to me, he's just so like untouchable, but it has influence of him for sure. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. It's fun. Well, so with everything that you have going on between your music, your acting, your garbage art, your street art, your drawings, how do you wind it down at night? And do you have a bedtime routine with your son? What's that like?
Well, with Mikey, the routine pretty much as far stays consistent, although the time does not stay consistent. I'm not great at we party, like sometimes it's 9:30. I'm like, oh, you got to get to bed. Oh my gosh. Maybe not the best, but but we always read a book, and I sing him a song, a song that I wrote for him. And my husband and I switch off every night with Mikey that's his bedtime routine. So a book, and then my husband sings him a different song that he wrote. So it's very,
nice.
Every other night. And then when it's time for me to go to bed, I usually do Wordle. and then I listen to a book on tape. I love to listen to diaries of people. So I love David Sedaris and his diaries. And I've probably heard them I don't know, 100 times now. So I'm not like, ooh, what's going to happen next? It just kind of puts me to sleep. And then also, I love Keith Haring's diary, which is awesome. I would highly recommend it. And or I just listen to something that is, I listened to Madonna's biography. It wasn't an autobiography, but recently, and that was interesting. Yeah, something like that.
I bet. Well, cool. Well, are you ready to dive into our first story?
Let's do it. I can't wait.
All right. The word is stem. Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Mikey. And Mikey was a really interesting kid. He was about 7 years old, and he had an unusual fascination with a particular flower bed in his backyard. And it was a really, really interesting flower bed. There were a mix of roses and dandelions and sunflowers, and somehow they all just kind of grew together in a way that he hadn't seen throughout the rest of his yard, or when he would go to school, or when he would go on walks with his parents, or when he would play at the park. It was just a bright, vivid tapestry of color, if you will. And one afternoon, it was a beautiful, beautiful sunny day. It's about 72 degrees, a little bit of a breeze in the air. He walked outside to his favorite flower bed, and he saw something unusual. And he got a little closer, and he got a little closer. And amongst all of these very colorful flowers, he saw a lone stem. It looked like a flowerless flower, and he thought it was strange. And what was even stranger was that the stem started to wiggle a little bit. He investigated it a little bit closer, thought maybe there was a bug at the base of the stem that had been climbing on it to move it or something, or it wasn't the wind because none of the other flowers were moving. It was just wiggling a little bit. And he leaned in closer, and he heard, "Psst, psst, hey, Mikey." And he looked around. There was no one to his left. There was no one to his right. There was no one in front of him. There was no one behind him. "Psst, psst, hey, Mikey, down here." And he looked down at the stem. The stem was talking to him. And he said, "Are you talking to me?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm talking to you, Mikey. I'm the stem. I'm the stem that talks. I need a favor, Mikey." And Mikey looked around again. He must be dreaming, imagining something. This couldn't be real. And the stem said, "Mikey, this is very much real." It was almost like the stem could read his thoughts. So he decided to engage. He said, "Okay, stem." He felt very uncomfortable just saying those words. If anybody saw him talking to a stem, they would think something might be wrong with him. The stem said, "Mikey, I got a problem. I don't have a flower on top of me, and I know you're super into flowers because I see you come out here every day. Can you help me figure out what the problem is?" And he said, "Sure. I'm not really a botanist or a flower. I just like to sit and hang out and enjoy the flowers, but you know what? I'll go ask my science teacher."
And so Mikey said, "Hang on. I'm going to take a photo of you, and I'm going to bring you into my class, and I'm going to ask my science teacher if she can help me figure out why you don't have a flower." He said, "But in the meantime, what's your name?" And the stem looked at him and said, "My name is Steve. Steve the stem." And Mikey said, "Oh, all right, Steve. Steve the stem, I will help you. I promise, no matter what, we're going to get a flower on top of you." And he said, "Steve, in the meantime, Is there anything else I can do for you? And Steve said, every day I just wish I had a flower on top of my head. And Mikey thought about it, and he said, well, I have an idea. So he went back to his house, and he grabbed some Scotch tape, and he went back to the garden, and he picked a little petal off of one daisy, and a little petal off of one tulip, and a little petal off another lilac, and he kept taping these petals together, and he stuck it on top of Steve's stem. And Steve said, well, I think I'm the weirdest looking flower of the bunch, but at least I've got a flower on top of my stem. And Mikey said, that'll hold you over till I can figure out what to do. And Mikey took one picture on his phone, because he was lucky. He had a little phone. It didn't actually work, but it took pictures. He couldn't call anyone. He couldn't go on Instagram, but he could take a photo with that phone. And he took a picture, and he brought it into school. And the next day, he said, Miss McGillicuddy, would you look at this crazy flower? And she looked at the picture and thought, well, that is the weirdest flower I have ever seen. It's got a lilac petal and a rose petal and a daisy petal. What is this flower? And he said, actually, that's just kind of like the hat I made for this guy, but the stem. This is Steve the stem. And what he needs is his own flower. And she thought, well, it's definitely going to need some love and care and a little bit of science.
So, little Mikey went back home to see Steve the stem, but he brought with him Miss McGillicuddy, his science teacher, because he was not an expert in this area and he didn't exactly know what love and care entailed. And Miss McGillicuddy had brought some very special fertilizer and some water that was infused with nutrients. He didn't have access to this stuff. He's a 7-year-old kid. So they go back into the backyard and little Mikey leads her over to Steve the stem, and Miss McGillicuddy crouches down to take a closer look. And she looks around at the other flowers and she looks back to Steve the stem. She slowly removes the Scotch tape. Steve screamed, "Oh, that hurts!" But she didn't hear it. Only Mikey heard it, and Mikey looked at her, thinking she might have heard it. But based on the lack of reaction, he knew that he had a special relationship with Steve the stem, and only he could hear Steve the stem. So he thought that was pretty cool. And he said to Miss McGillicuddy, "Just be careful, you don't want to hurt him." And she said, "Okay, I'll be more careful." So she continued to carefully remove the Scotch tape and the other petals, and she sighed a bit, like a long kind of tired, like, "You dragged me out here for this," kind of sigh. And Mikey said, What's the problem?" And she said, "Well, Mikey, there's no problem here. It's just that the stem is not a stem. It's a very tall blade of grass, and it doesn't flower." And he was devastated. And Steve started to weep a little bit because he wanted to be a flower. So Miss McGillicuddy went on her way, and Mikey sat there with Steve the stem. And after Steve had gotten a good cry out, Mikey said, "You know what, Steve? It's not the worst thing to be this beautiful tall blade of grass amongst all these beautiful flowers. I think maybe you just need to accept the fact that you're a blade of grass and you're not a flower. And that's okay. It's okay to just be a blade of grass. And what you need to do is just be the best blade of grass you could possibly be." And so every day, Mikey would come out and visit Steve, give him a little bit of extra water, check in and see how he was doing. And every day, Steve's attitude got a little bit better. And then one day, Mikey had the idea to pick Steve and put him next to another blade of grass that looked lonely. And the two blades of grass became best buds, and they grew and grew and grew, and they thrived and they thrived and they thrived as blades of grass, and they were okay with that. The end. KATE MICUCCI, are you ready for one more story?
One more story? You know it. I'm ready.
All right. The word is disobey.
So once upon a time, there was a little puppy named Gilbert, and Gilbert loved his family. He had a friend named Jack, and Jack was 7, just like Mikey, and Jack loved Gilbert, and Gilbert loved Jack. And together, they would play. Jack would throw the ball, and Gilbert the puppy would run and get it, and he'd bring it back. And then, if Jack gave him food, he'd say, "Come on, Gilbert." And Gilbert was just a perfect little dog who would go and eat his food, say, "Thank you, Jack," and go back to his bed. He was such a sweet dog. But one day, Jack took Gilbert the dog to the dog park. And Gilbert saw so many other dogs. He saw dogs peeing on bushes. He saw dogs running in circles. He saw owners saying, "Behave! You need to behave." And Gilbert thought, does this mean I could be a dog that doesn't behave? I could disobey Jack? Maybe I should try it. So the next day, when Jack threw the ball to Gilbert, Gilbert picked up the ball and he kept running. He ran and he ran. He did not run back to Jack. He ran all through the town. And everybody was waving. "Hey, look at that dog. Look at that dog with that ball. Where is he running to?" And then you'd see Jack running after him. "My dog is not obeying me. Why does he disobey?" And Jack ran and ran until finally he ran back to his house. And Jack said, "Gilbert, why would you do that? Why didn't you listen? Why didn't you bring the ball back to me like you usually do?" But Gilbert didn't say anything. Then it was time to eat. So Jack filled Gilbert's bowl with dog food. And usually, Gilbert would just eat it perfectly and go back to his bed. But on this day, Gilbert went and he picked up a mouthful of dog food and he spit it all over the room. And Jack said, "Gilbert, why? Why are you disobeying? You used to be such a good dog." And then last but not least, usually Gilbert would go and pee in the yard. But on this day, Gilbert peed on the carpet in the house. "Gilbert, why did you do that?" But Gilbert went to bed that night and he thought, I kind of got in trouble today. I've never been in trouble before. I tried out being a dog that was kind of bad, but I don't really think I like being a bad dog. It's not very fun to be disobedient. I think I should listen to Jack. Because when I listen to Jack, we have fun. We play fetch. I eat my food. I pee in the yard like I should. And everybody's happy. So the next day, Jack threw the ball, and Gilbert brought it back. And Jack poured the food, and Gilbert ate it up very clean and neat and said thank you. And Gilbert peed in the yard. So Gilbert had been a great dog that day, back to his old self. Jack said, Gilbert, buddy boy, glad to have you back." And Gilbert licked Jack's face, and they both went to bed. But then Jack got to thinking, wow, I love my dog Gilbert so much. He might need a friend. Maybe I should get another dog, because then Gilbert could have a friend when I'm at school, and they could play together. And then when I get home from school, I could have 2 dogs to play with. And so Jack asked his mom, "Oh, Mom, can I get another dog?" And his mom said, "You know, you're very good with your dog. Sure, we can get a second." So they went to the pound. And at the very end, in the last little part of the area where you could adopt a dog, there was this dog named Rex. And he was big, and he had a bark. But Jack thought, this looks like the dog for me. So he got Rex and he brought him home. He said, "Gilbert, meet your new friend." And Rex just growled. Arr. Gilbert thought, "Oh boy, I don't know if this guy is gonna be my friend." And Rex said, "Stick with me, kid. You think you've been bad before? You haven't seen bad." So Rex and Gilbert waited until Jack went to school. And as soon as Jack was at school, Rex and Gilbert tore up the house. They ate all the cushions. They pulled out all the stuffing. They peed on the furniture. They were having the best time being bad dogs. And when Jack got home from school, he saw a giant mess. "Oh no, Gilbert, Rex, what have you done?" And Rex ran out the door, and Gilbert chased after him. He said, "We're real bad dogs now." And they ran through the town together. "Take that, buddy." And they ran up the hill at the park together. Woohoo! And they found the park pool, and they ran down the slide, whing, into the water, splash. These 2 dogs were having the best time being bad dogs. Finally, a police officer saw these 2 bad dogs and said, "Hey guys, what are you doing around these parts?" And he took a giant net, and he got the 2 bad dogs, Gilbert and Rex. And Gilbert and Rex got put in the back of the police car. And they thought, "Oh no, we've really done it now, haven't we?" And Gilbert said, "Rex, it might be fun to be bad, but it also can be fun to get along with the people you live with." And Rex said, "Oh, well, I've never really had any owners before. I don't know what that feels like." And Gilbert said, "Well, hey, how about we go back to Jack, and we'll convince him together we can be pals. We'll be good together. And we can say we're sorry for tearing up the house, and eating all the cushions, and peeing on the carpet." And he said, "Okay, I'm willing to give that a shot." So the police officer brought Rex and Gilbert back to their house, and he said, "Jack, your 2 dogs have torn up the town." Jack said, "Thank you so much, officer, for bringing him back to me. I promise I'll take good care of him." And from then on, the 2 dogs decided they were going to be good together and be the best dogs they could be for their owner, Jack. And that day, they played fetch together, and Rex thought, "Wow, so this is what it's like to play fetch." And they ate food together, and Rex thought, "Wow, so this is what it's like to share." And at night, they gave each other one big lick, and Rex thought, "So this is what it's like to cuddle." And they all fell asleep. And Rex was so happy to have a new home with people and dogs who loved him. And Gilbert was so happy to have a new friend and to have learned that it's not that much fun to disobey, although it's a little fun. And Jack was so happy to have 2 dogs to play with. The end.